The Transportation Security Administration says U.S. officials are seizing hundreds of drones near World Cup sites, despite repeated warnings to not fly this aircraft around stadiums unless specifically authorized by air traffic controllers. FBI officials released this footage showing agents seizing drones from operators that were allegedly violating flight restrictions. The FAA says violators can face fines of up to $100,000, as well as criminal charges. Joining us this morning is Tombo Jones, a drone expert and the director of the Mid-Atlantic Aviation Partnership at Virginia Tech. Thanks so much for being with us. So as you know, the TSA says more than 300 drones have been seized during the FIFA events this year thus far. What's your reaction to this number as someone who is probably well aware of the warnings and the restrictions ahead of the tournament?
Yeah, hey, Vlad. Hey, Chanel. Thank you for having me. As one of 9 FAA-designated UAS test sites, Vlad, we do a lot of training of drone operators, and certainly part of the training is educating drone operators on where they should and shouldn't fly. So it's frankly disappointing to see a number of drone operators that are bringing drones to those events that are clearly marked as temporary flight restricted areas where you're not supposed to fly drones. And so, I don't know if it's ignorance, a lack of training, or maybe operators that actually don't have their license. So operators today are supposed to have either a Part 107 for a commercial license or a recreational trust certificate, which teaches them where they can and can't fly drones. So overall, this is disappointing to hear.
So, what's interesting to me is, I think there are a lot of people that when they think of drones, they think of war zones. But as part of your work at Virginia Tech, you're actually helping integrate what you call drones for good into the national airspace. So talk about that and how you believe it's being used to make things safer.
Yeah, thanks, Chanel. We, as a test site, we work in 2 fronts. The mission set we're given from the FAA is both to work on drones for good and to work on security around drones, so counter UAS. And in the drones for good space that you're asking about, there's a number of FAA programs we work under. One example is the FAA Beyond program, and we have partners like Wing that does package delivery and brings a lot of good to people, delivering things that are in need. Certainly during the pandemic, they were delivering things in non-contact, and every day people are ordering food and supplies through Wing. Also, power generation inspection, a safer way to do work around power company work. Dominion Energy is one of our partners. So those are some examples of drones for good. And certainly, even if we look at the World Cup, we see drones being utilized in media and bringing really exciting footage of the events. And so even right there at the World Cup, drones are being used for good.
You served in the Coast Guard, and recently we saw another example of a drone for good when a submarine drone rescued some downed U.S. Apache pilots. Is that where you see drone technology headed?
Certainly it's a good use of drone technology, Vlad, and I'll point out that I actually flew for the Army for a number of years and then for the Coast Guard, so I can appreciate not only the act of rescuing, but being rescued in that situation. And I think it's remarkable, and actually I'm proud of the fact that we're able to use autonomous technologies to go and rescue folks that are in contested areas so that we are not exposing additional aviators, if you will, or additional coxswain that are operating boats to the risk that was originally presented to those 2 Apache pilots. And so I'm glad to see that technology being utilized. And again, as you point out, this is drones being used for good.
And what's also interesting here is they're just so accessible, right? Not just in industry, but recreationally as well. And so I just wonder how you're sort of balancing technology for good with the danger and the risks that it can sometimes pose.
Yeah, thanks, Chanel. They're ubiquitous. Like, drones are everywhere, and you can buy drones, and they're getting less and less expensive. There's been a lot of effort by the FAA to make drones, the deployment of drones safer. A great example is the remote ID rule. So this applies to all drone operators that are operating drones that weigh more than 0.55 or more than half a pound. And most of the drones we see are like that. It is a way for law enforcement, when there's a drone in the air, to actually be able to detect the drone and know where the operator is. And there's some challenges with the technology around remote ID, but we are actually working, the FAA is working to improve that. And as part of the FAA Assure program, we're working with a few other universities, Mississippi State, University of Kansas, New Mexico State University, and Oregon State, to come up with a new plan on how to improve remote ID. And so the thing is, drones are just so easy to buy, you know, and utilize for both recreational and commercial purposes, that really education is the most important thing, because if we can get the public to responsibly deploy drones, then the drones that we see that are operating in places they shouldn't be can then be, you know, quickly determined as being nefariously operated, right? And that's the difficult part of counter-UAS, is being able to determine what's a good drone that's just been accidentally, and this is somebody who's not trying to cause harm, versus a drone that's trying to cause harm.
All right, Tombo Jones, thank you so much.